The sun was burning bright over the alien city, and the open market was full of noise, shouting, and strange smells. Merchants were calling out prices, children were running between stalls, and guards were walking lazily, not really caring about the chaos around them. In the middle of this crowd, a thin alien woman stumbled forward. Her clothes were torn, her face was covered with dust, and her long silver hair was tangled like a broken net. People saw her and started whispering, then laughing. She looked weak, too weak to fight back. She tried to walk past the fruit stalls, but a merchant suddenly pushed her with his tail and shouted, "Stay away, filthy beggar!" The crowd laughed. She lost her balance and fell into the mud. Her knees hit the ground hard and her hands sank into the dirty water. Instead of helping her, the aliens around her cheered. One alien boy threw a rotten fruit at her. Another woman spat on her back and muttered, "Shameful creature!" The alien woman's eyes filled with tears, but she kept her head down. She had suffered this before. She had been called worse names, pushed into darker places, and treated like less than an animal. But today, one pair of eyes was watching her carefully. A human man stood near a blacksmith stall carrying a small bag of tools. His clothes were plain, his boots covered with dust from work. He was not rich, not powerful, just an ordinary mechanic who had come to buy spare parts. But when he saw the alien woman lying in the mud, something in his chest tightened. He had seen cruelty before. He knew how easily crowds turned into wolves. He clenched his fists, but for the moment he stayed silent. He wanted to see if anyone at all, would help her. The woman slowly tried to get up, but another alien merchant kicked her side, making her collapse again. The crowd laughed louder. The human's jaw tightened. His hand gripped the strap of his bag. Still, he waited. The alien woman raised her trembling hand toward a loaf of bread sitting on a stall. Her lips moved, whispering something weak, maybe begging for food. But the merchant slapped her hand away. "Not for you," he sneered, "not for trash." She fell back into the mud, her silver hair spreading like a dirty cloth on the ground. The laughter grew louder, echoing through the marketplace. Some guards noticed, but instead of stopping the cruelty, they smirked and turned away. The human could not bear it anymore. He pushed forward through the crowd. His boots splashed into the mud as he walked straight toward her. The laughter slowly died down. The aliens were confused. No one expected a human to step in. The human stopped beside the fallen woman. He bent down and extended his hand toward her. His voice was calm but firm. "Come on, get up," he said. The alien woman froze. She looked up at him with wide, frightened eyes. For a moment she thought this was another trick. Many times others had offered false kindness only to hurt her again. She shook her head and whispered, "No. Please, don't." The man didn't pull his hand back. He stayed there, waiting, his eyes steady. "I won't hurt you," he said simply. His tone carried no mockery, only truth. The crowd started whispering. Why is a human helping her? Does he not know what she is? He will regret this. The alien woman's hands trembled. Slowly, as if her body weighed 1,000 stones, she reached up and touched his hand. His grip was strong, steady, pulling her up out of the mud. Her legs shook, and for a moment she leaned against him to keep her balance. Gasps rose from the crowd. "You touched her," one alien shouted in shock. Another laughed bitterly. Humans are foolish creatures, but the human didn't care. He pulled a small cloth from his bag and gently wiped the mud from her face. She flinched at the touch, still not believing his kindness. Why are you helping me?" she whispered. He didn't answer right away. He looked around at the staring crowd, then back at her. His eyes were steady, almost defiant. Finally, he said, "Because no one else will." The words cut through the market like a knife. The laughter stopped. The aliens shifted uncomfortably. No one liked being reminded of their cruelty. The alien woman lowered her head. Tears rolled down her cheeks, mixing with the dirt. For the first time in a long time, she felt something strange. Something she thought she had lost forever. A small flicker of dignity, but the danger was not over. The crowd began to grow restless. Some aliens muttered that the human was foolish. Others said he was insulting their people. A merchant shouted, "Leave her. She deserves the mud." Another hissed, "Humans should not interfere." The human didn't move. He stood tall beside the woman, his hand still holding her arm, keeping her steady. His eyes scanned the crowd, and in his chest burned a quiet fire. The marketplace had turned silent now, but it was not a peaceful silence. It was the silence before a storm. And deep inside, both the human and the alien woman knew This small act of kindness had just lit a spark that could change everything. The crowd had grown quiet, but not because of mercy. They were watching, whispering, waiting to see what the human would do next. No one in the market could understand it. Why would a man from Earth, a stranger in their city, lower himself to lift a fallen alien woman from the mud? The human held her arm firmly, steadying her fragile body. She looked like she could break apart any moment, like a glass about to shatter. Her breathing was shallow and her steps were weak. She had no strength left, but still she tried to stand tall, ashamed of leaning on him. "You should not," she whispered, her voice almost too soft to hear. They will hate you for this," the man shook his head. "Let them hate," he said quietly. His tone was simple, without anger, without fear. A sharp laugh cut through the silence. A heavy-set alien merchant stepped forward, his thick scales glinting under the sun. "Look at this human," he barked. He holds trash in his hands and calls it worth saving. Pathetic. The crowd chuckled nervously, encouraged by his voice. The human turned his eyes toward the merchant, calm but unyielding. "Pathetic," he repeated slowly, "is watching someone suffer and doing nothing." Murmurs rose again. The alien woman lowered her head, her silver hair covering her face. Her heart raced. She had never heard anyone speak for her like this, not for many years. The merchant sneered and spat into the mud. "You don't know what she is," he said. "She is cursed. She is dirty blood. She deserves the ground beneath our boots." The woman flinched, the old pain reopening inside her, but the human's grip on her arm tightened slightly, not in force but in reassurance. He spoke, his voice steady. "I don't care what she is. She's not an animal," the crowd gasped. No one dared speak against the merchant, yet this stranger had done so without hesitation. A guard finally stepped closer, his armor clinking. He looked at the human with boredom, not anger. "You are new here," the guard said. "Let her go. Don't make trouble." The man's lips curved into a thin line. He answered simply, "She's already in trouble. And I won't let her face it alone." The woman's eyes widened. She stared at him, almost forgetting her fear. His words struck something inside her, something she thought was long dead. Hope. The guard sighed and waved his hand lazily. "Fine. If you want to waste your time, take her. But don't complain later when she drags you into ruin." He turned away, uninterested. The crowd laughed again, but softer now, unsure how to treat the human's defiance. The man placed his arm carefully around the woman's shoulders. She stiffened at the touch but did not pull away. Step by step he led her out of the market, ignoring the eyes that followed them. The road beyond the market was quieter, dusty, and lined with broken stone walls. The woman stumbled once, nearly falling again, but he held her steady. He guided her toward a small workshop built from metal sheets and old parts. The smell of oil and iron drifted from within. When he opened the door, the woman froze at the entrance. Why are you bringing me here?" she asked softly, her voice trembling. "Because you need a place to rest," he replied, "and because I couldn't leave you there." Inside, the workshop was simple. Tools hanging on the walls, half-finished machines lying on the tables, and a single cot in the corner. He guided her to the cot and let her sit. She looked around, confused. "No one does this," she whispered, her voice breaking. "No one offers me shelter. Why would you?" The man knelt before her. His eyes met hers. "Because you're still alive." That's reason enough. Her throat tightened. She wanted to speak, to tell him not to waste his kindness, to warn him that helping her would only bring him harm. But the words refused to come out. Instead, tears fell silently down her cheeks. The man quietly moved to a shelf and returned with a bowl of water and a piece of cloth. Without a word, he dipped the cloth and began to clean the mud from her hands. She pulled back at first, but his steady patience calmed her. Slowly, she allowed him to continue. For a long moment, there was silence in the workshop, broken only by the sound of water dripping into the bowl. The woman's breathing slowed, her trembling eased. She felt something she had not felt in years, a sense of safety, however fragile. But outside, the whispers had already started spreading. The crowd in the market would not forget this scene. Merchants would tell others, guards would gossip, and soon, more eyes would turn toward the human who dared to touch the filthy woman. Inside the small workshop, the man finally spoke again, his voice low. "What is your name?" The woman hesitated. She had not spoken her name in a long time. Names were dangerous. Names carried pasts and pasts carried pain. Still, she whispered, "Lyra." The man nodded once. "Lyra," he repeated softly as if sealing it with respect. "I'm Daniel." For the first time in years, she heard her name spoken without scorn. Her lips trembled. She could not say thank you, but the look in her eyes said enough. And while she sat there fragile but alive, Daniel glanced toward the door. His instincts told him the peace would not last. The city would not ignore what he had done. Trouble was coming, but he also knew one thing with certainty. He would not regret offering his hand. The door of the workshop closed with a soft creak, shutting out the noise of the market. Inside, the air smelled of iron, oil, and smoke from an old furnace in the corner. Daniel set down his bag of tools and turned toward Lyra, the alien woman who now sat quietly on the cot. She looked lost in the silence, her silver hair falling across her face, her hands gripping the edge of the blanket like she feared it would vanish. Her eyes kept darting to the door as if she expected someone to burst inside. She had lived too long with betrayal, too long with cruelty. She did not believe in safe places anymore. Daniel noticed her trembling hands. He moved slowly, careful not to frighten her. "You're safe here," he said softly. "No one will hurt you while you're under this roof." She shook her head. "You don't know. You don't understand what they'll do. They'll come for me, and for you too." Daniel pulled a small container of food from a shelf. He placed it on the table beside her. The smell of warm broth filled the room. "Maybe," he said, calm and steady, "but right now you need strength more than fear. Eat." Lyra stared at the bowl. Her throat tightened. It had been days, maybe weeks, since she had eaten anything warm. Slowly, with trembling fingers, she lifted the spoon. Her lips parted, and the first sip of broth slid down her throat. Her body almost shuddered at the taste. Warmth spread through her chest. For the first time in a long time, food did not come with insults, with kicks, or with humiliation. Tears gathered in her eyes as she ate. Daniel said nothing, only watched quietly, making sure she took her time. He was used to fixing broken machines, but tonight he was trying to repair something far more fragile, a spirit. When she finished, she set the bowl aside with shaking hands. "Why?" she asked again, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why are you doing this for me?" "I am nothing to you." Daniel leaned back in his chair. He rubbed the grease from his fingers with a rag. "Because," he said simply, "I've seen too many people look away. I won't be one of them." She lowered her gaze, her tears slipping onto the blanket. No one had spoken to her like that in years. A sudden knock on the workshop's wall made her flinch. She stiffened, fear flashing in her eyes. But it was only the wind rattling a loose sheet of metal. Daniel noticed her panic and frowned. Whoever she was, whatever her past held, it had scarred her deeply. "You don't have to tell me anything," he said gently. "Not yet. But someday, if you want me to understand, I'll listen." She bit her lip, torn between silence and the urge to finally let her pain out. But before she could speak, voices echoed faintly from outside. Two merchants were passing on the street. Their words were clear in the quiet night. "Did you see him? The human actually touched her." "Can you believe it?" one whispered. The other laughed harshly. "Foolish. He'll regret it. The council doesn't tolerate outcasts. They'll crush him for protecting her." The voices faded as the men walked away, but the words hung in the air like poison. Lyra's face went pale. She turned to Daniel. "You see? Already they spread it. Soon the guards will return. Soon the crowd will come." Daniel tightened his jaw. He walked to the window, pulled the curtain down, and let darkness cover the room. "Let them come," he said in a low voice. "I don't fear them." She stared at him in disbelief. "You should fear them. They have power. You are only one man." Daniel turned back, his eyes steady. Sometimes one man is enough. The silence between them grew heavy. Lyra looked at him as if he were someone from another world. Not just because he was human, but because he was different. No one else had ever looked at her with respect. No one had ever given her value. Her chest tightened, and without realizing, she whispered, "Once, I was not like this." Daniel tilted his head. "Not like this?" Her hands clenched on the blanket. Her lips trembled. "I had a name that carried weight. A family that stood high. But betrayal is sharp. They took everything from me, my place, my home, my dignity. And when they cast me down, the people followed, eager to spit where they once bowed. Daniel listened quietly, his expression calm but serious. "So they broke you," he said. Her eyes glistened with tears. "Yes," she admitted, her voice breaking. "And still, they want me gone. If they know I'm here, they will destroy you too." Daniel crossed the room, crouching beside her. His voice was low but strong. "Then let them try. I've lived fixing broken things all my life. Maybe it's time I stand for something that matters." Her breath caught. She could not believe such words came from him. Her body shook, not from hunger now, but from the fragile spark of hope she feared to feel. Outside, the night deepened. Whispers continued in the streets, whispers that would reach sharper ears soon. Trouble was moving closer, step by step. But inside the workshop, for the first time in years, Lyra felt the warmth of kindness, a shelter more powerful than walls or doors. And though fear pressed against her heart, she could not stop thinking of one question. Why did this human value her, when no one else in the galaxy would? The workshop was quiet, but the silence was heavy, like a storm waiting to break. Outside, faint voices drifted through the night. The city had already begun to whisper about the human who had dared to protect the outcast. But inside, the small room was lit only by a dim lamp, its flickering glow casting long shadows across the walls. Lyra sat on the cot, her silver hair hanging loosely around her face. Her hands twisted the edge of the blanket nervously. She looked at Daniel, who sat across from her, sharpening a small tool with slow, steady motions. His calm presence made the silence easier, but the weight in her chest would not leave. Finally, she spoke, her voice trembling. "You asked me before what I was. I told you I was once different. Tonight I will tell you the truth." Daniel looked up, his dark eyes meeting hers. He said nothing, but his steady gaze invited her to continue. Lyra drew in a shaky breath. "I was born into a house of power. My family was part of the ruling council, one of the oldest bloodlines of our people. I had servants, guards, even scholars who bowed to me. My word carried weight. My name opened doors." She paused, her voice breaking. "But that was before." Daniel leaned forward slightly, listening without judgment. "One night," she continued, "everything changed. My own kin betrayed me. They accused me of lies, of crimes I never committed. They painted me as a danger, as someone unworthy of our blood. And the people, the same people who once bowed before me, they turned on me. They spat at me, cursed me, dragged me from my home, and cast me into the dirt. No trial, no defense, only shame." Her voice cracked, and she covered her face with her hands. "Since then I have been nothing. No name, no family, only mud beneath their feet." Daniel set his tool aside. His jaw tightened, but his eyes remained calm. He let her finish without interruption. Slowly, she pulled her hands away from her face and looked at him. Tears shone on her cheeks. "You must understand now. Helping me is not kindness, it is danger. The council still hunts me. They want me erased completely. If they know you gave me shelter, they will destroy you without hesitation." Daniel's brow furrowed. "So," he said quietly, "you were punished for lies. Cast out for something you didn't do." She nodded weakly. "Yes, and because of that, no one will ever believe me again. Not the guards, not the merchants, not the common people. To them I am already guilty. I am nothing but filth." For a long moment Daniel was silent. Then slowly he stood and walked to the small furnace. He stirred the dying embers, sparks rising into the air. His voice was low but steady. "Where I come from, we say truth is like fire. You can bury it, smother it, cover it with ashes, but in time it will burn again." Lyra blinked at him, unsure how to answer. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Daniel turned back to her. "You're alive, Lyra. That means your story isn't finished. Betrayal doesn't erase who you are." Her lips trembled. She wanted to believe him, but fear pulled her down. "You don't understand. I have no power left. I am alone." Daniel walked closer, crouching in front of her. "Not anymore," he said firmly. "You're not alone." Her eyes widened. She stared at him, unable to speak. The words seemed impossible, yet here was this human, a stranger offering her the one thing she had lost, belonging. But outside, danger was already moving closer. The whispers from the market had reached the wrong ears. In the distance, boots echoed against the cobblestones. A patrol of guards was making its way through the dark streets. Inside the workshop, Lyra's heart raced suddenly. Her body tensed as if she had felt the danger before hearing it. "They're coming," she whispered. "I know it." Daniel glanced toward the door. He heard it too now, the steady rhythm of approaching steps. He stood quickly, checking the lock. His workshop had survived thieves before, but this would be different. Lyra clutched the blanket tightly, her voice shaking. "Please let me leave. If they find me here, they will punish you too. I cannot bring this curse to your door." Daniel turned back to her, his voice sharp but calm. "No, you're not walking into the street alone. If they come, they'll face me first." She shook her head violently, tears falling again. "You don't know what they are capable of." His reply was simple. "I don't care." The firmness in his tone silenced her. Her breath caught in her throat. For the first time in years, someone was willing to stand for her, even against the strongest power in her world. The steps outside grew louder. Shadows passed across the window. A heavy knock thundered against the door. "Open up," a harsh voice barked. "By order of the council, we search this place tonight." Lyra's hands shook violently. Her eyes filled with terror. "It's them," she whispered, almost choking on the words. "They've found me." Daniel's hand tightened around the handle of his tool, gripping it like a weapon. His eyes narrowed, calm but unyielding. He stood between Lyra and the door, his shadow stretching across the room like a wall. The pounding came again. "Open, human, or we break the door." Lyra buried her face in her hands, whispering, "Please, don't fight them, please." Daniel's voice was quiet, almost a whisper, but strong enough for her to hear. "You told me the truth, Lyra. Now let me decide what to do with it." The next knock shook the walls. The guards were ready to break in, and inside 2 lives held their breath, one broken by betrayal and one willing to stand against the storm. The pounding on the door shook the whole workshop. Dust fell from the wooden beams and the metal sheets on the wall rattled. Outside voices were rising, more than just guards now. The market's whispers had turned into a storm. The crowd was gathering. Daniel stood in front of the door, his body tense, one hand gripping a heavy wrench like a weapon. His jaw was set, his dark eyes burning with quiet determination. Behind him, Lyra sat frozen on the cot, clutching the blanket around her shoulders, her silver hair falling into her tear-stained face. Her breath came fast, sharp, each sound full of terror. "Open!" the guard's voice roared again. "By order of the council, you will let us search." The crowd outside shouted in agreement. "Throw her out!" one voice yelled. "She does not belong here!" another screamed. Laughter followed, cruel and sharp. Stones clattered against the metal walls, each strike echoing like thunder. Lyra's hand shook violently. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You can't fight them. There are too many. Please, give me to them before they hurt you." Daniel turned his head, his voice steady but firm. "I'm not handing you over." Her eyes widened in disbelief.
"But they'll kill you!"
"Maybe," he said, gripping the wrench tighter. "But I'd rather die standing than live watching them crush someone who can't fight back." The pounding grew louder. A board near the door cracked under the force. The crowd outside roared, chanting for blood. Daniel moved quickly. He shoved a heavy tool chest in front of the door, blocking it. The workshop was small, but it would hold for a while. He turned to Lyra. "Stay behind me. Whatever happens, don't move." Her lips trembled. She wanted to argue, to beg him not to do this, but no words came. Deep inside, she felt something she had not felt in years, a spark of hope. Someone was willing to stand for her. The door shook again, harder this time. Splinters flew. The crowd's chant grew louder, filling the street with rage. "Out with her! Out with the cursed one!" Daniel's chest rose and fell slowly, steadying his breath. He raised his voice, shouting through the door. "Listen to me. She has done nothing to you. You call her cursed, but the real curse is your cruelty." The crowd roared back with laughter and anger. One voice shouted, "Why do you care, human?" "She is nothing. She is dirt." Daniel's reply came sharp and fierce. "She is not dirt. She is more human than any of you right now." Inside the workshop, Lyra gasped softly. His words pierced her heart. No one had ever defended her like that. The guards outside barked orders. "Break it down." The door shook under their boots. The wooden frame groaned. Daniel stood firm, his wrench ready in his hand. His eyes narrowed, not with fear, but with resolve. "If you want her," he muttered under his breath, "you'll have to go through me." The first plank cracked, snapping under the pressure. A hand pushed through, grabbing at the broken wood. The crowd roared louder. The night was alive with fury, stones, and stomping feet. Lyra could not stay silent anymore. She rose from the cot and stumbled toward him. Her voice broke with desperation. "Please, Daniel, don't fight them for me. I am not worth it." He turned to her, his expression softening for the first time that night. "Lyra," he said firmly, "you're worth more than they'll ever admit. Don't let them make you believe otherwise." Her breath caught in her throat. Her chest shook with silent sobs. The door burst open slightly, the tool chest sliding back an inch. A guard's armored arm forced its way inside. Daniel swung his wrench, slamming it down hard. The guard shouted in pain and pulled back. The crowd hissed in anger, throwing more stones at the workshop's walls. "Human!" The guard roared from outside. "You will regret this." Daniel shouted back, his voice carrying over the noise. "Better regret helping someone than regret doing nothing." The crowd shouted louder, furious. They were no longer just laughing, they were dangerous now, united by anger and fear. Inside, Lyra's body shook. She knew the storm was only beginning. Daniel could hold the door for a while, but the crowd was too many. And once they broke inside, there would be no mercy. Yet as she looked at him, standing tall, protecting her without hesitation, something stirred deep inside her. She had spent years drowning in shame and despair, but now, for the first time, she wondered if her life could still matter. The workshop shook again, harder than before. The chest scraped across the floor. Daniel braced himself, sweat on his forehead, his muscles tense. The night was no longer quiet, it was a battlefield. One man against a mob, one human heart against the cruelty of many. And as the door groaned under the pressure, Lyra whispered to herself, almost in disbelief, "He's fighting for me. No one has ever fought for me." The door finally gave way with a thunderous crack. Splinters scattered across the workshop floor as the heavy chest slid aside. A wave of dust filled the air, and the sound of boots stomped into the room. 3 guards in dark armor forced their way in, their glowing weapons raised. Behind them, the angry crowd pushed and shouted, their voices echoing like a storm. The night outside burned with torches and shadows danced wildly on the walls. Daniel stood at the center, his wrench still in his hand. He did not move back. His body blocked Lyra completely, like a wall of flesh and iron. His eyes, sharp and steady, locked on the guards. The lead guard sneered, his reptilian face twisting in disgust. "Human," he growled, "step aside. This filth belongs to us." Daniel's grip tightened on the wrench. His voice came out calm but cold. "She belongs to no one." The crowd hissed at his defiance. Stones and insults flew from outside. "Traitor," someone shouted. "Foolish human," yelled another. The guard stepped forward, slamming the butt of his weapon against the floor. The sound echoed like thunder. "You dare stand against the council?" Daniel's jaw clenched. "I dare stand against cruelty." The guard's eyes narrowed, and for a moment even the crowd fell quiet. The man's words were simple, but they cut through the noise. Behind him, Lyra's hands shook as she clutched the blanket tighter. Her eyes never left Daniel's back. Her heart raced, fear for him, fear for herself, but also awe. She had never seen anyone defy the guards, not even for their own family. The lead guard finally raised his weapon, pointing it straight at Daniel's chest. Move or die. The workshop seemed to hold its breath. Daniel lifted his wrench, his stance unyielding. His voice was steady, almost quiet. "Then kill me standing. But you'll have to explain to your council why you murdered a human over nothing but a woman in rags." Murmurs rippled through the crowd outside. They had not considered that. Killing an alien outcast was one thing, but killing a human from Earth? That could invite questions, even punishment. The guard hesitated, his eyes flicking toward the crowd. For a brief moment, uncertainty cracked his confidence. Daniel saw it. He stepped forward, his voice louder now. "You call her filth, but it is you who stand here like dogs hunting the weak. Tell me, what power is that? Beating someone who cannot fight back? That's not strength. That's shame." The crowd stirred uneasily. Some lowered their eyes. Others muttered angrily, but their voices carried less weight now. The guard snarled, anger flashing across his face.
"Enough!"
He swung his weapon at Daniel. Daniel moved fast. His wrench met the strike with a sharp clang, sparks flying in the dim light. The impact rattled the small workshop, but Daniel did not fall. He pushed back, forcing the guard to stumble one step. Gasps rose from the crowd. No one expected the human to hold his ground against armored soldiers. The second guard rushed forward, raising his blade. Daniel sidestepped, swinging the wrench hard. The blow struck the guard's shoulder, making him cry out. The third guard hesitated, uncertain whether to attack or wait. The crowd outside roared, half in anger, half in disbelief. Some cheered for blood. Others watched with wide eyes, stunned that a lone human was resisting. Inside, Daniel's breath grew heavy, but his stance never faltered. He was outnumbered, outmatched, but he fought with something stronger than weapons: conviction. Lyra's chest heaved. Every strike, every movement made her heart race. She wanted to scream for him to stop, to run, to leave her. But her voice stuck in her throat, her eyes filled with tears. She had lived so long believing no one would ever value her life. And now here was this man risking his own. The lead guard snarled, pushing forward again. "You cannot win." Daniel swung his wrench high, sparks lighting the air. "Maybe not," he said between breaths, "but I can make you remember me." The guards pressed harder. The workshop walls shook as blades clashed against steel. Boots stomped against the floor and the crowd's roars thundered outside. But Daniel did not step aside. Every strike he blocked, every word he shouted carried a message that reached beyond the walls. Strength is not crushing the weak. He yelled, his voice echoing above the noise. Strength is protecting them. The word spread through the crowd like fire. Some fell silent, uneasy. A few even lowered their torches. The image of a lone human defying the armored guards for an outcast woman burned in their minds. Lyra covered her mouth, her tears streaming freely now. For the first time in years, she felt the heavy chains around her spirit loosen. The shame she carried, the weight of betrayal, cracked under the sight of Daniel's courage. The guards pressed forward again, but the hesitation in their movements grew. They could sense the crowd shifting, the mood changing. The human was no longer just a man with a wrench. He was becoming a symbol. Daniel's arms ached, his chest burned, but he held firm. His voice, rough with breath, cut through the chaos one last time. "If you want her, you'll have to take both of us. And I promise, I won't make it easy." The workshop fell into a tense silence. The guards stared at him, their blades raised, but their confidence faltered. The crowd's roars dimmed into whispers, the fire of their cruelty slowly cooling into doubt. And in that moment, under the flickering torchlight, Daniel proved something no one expected. Courage could stand taller than fear, even when facing an army. The air inside the workshop was heavy, thick with smoke from the torches outside and the dust from broken wood. The crowd had fallen into an uneasy silence. No one expected this scene. A single human standing against armored guards, refusing to move aside. Daniel's chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. Sweat trickled down his forehead, his arms sore from blocking strike after strike. Yet he stood tall, his wrench still raised like a sword. Behind him, Lyra clutched the blanket tightly around her, her wide eyes fixed on him. The lead guard, humiliated and frustrated, spat on the ground. His weapon trembled slightly in his hands. "You're a fool, human," he snarled. "Do you think you can protect her forever? Do you think you can change how people see her?" Daniel's voice came rough but strong. "I don't need to change all of them. I just need to prove she deserves respect." The words carried across the crowd, echoing like a bell in the night. Some aliens lowered their torches, shifting uncomfortably. Others muttered, but their voices carried less venom now. The sight of the human's courage had cracked their certainty. The second guard stepped forward, his blade gleaming. But before he could strike, an old alien woman in the crowd suddenly spoke. Her voice was shaky but clear. "He is right," she said. "We call her cursed, but what curse is this? Look at him. He sees her as one of us, and yet we spit on her." The crowd stirred. A few heads nodded. Whispers spread like ripples in water. The guard growled in frustration. "Silence. The council decides who is worthy, not a human mechanic." Daniel pointed his wrench at the guard. His eyes blazed. "The council may hold power, but power doesn't make them right." Gasps rose from the crowd. Never before had anyone spoken against the council so openly. The guards hesitated again, sensing the shift. The more they pressed, the more the crowd seemed to question them. Behind Daniel, Lyra's heart pounded. Her tears streamed freely. For so long she had believed she was nothing but dirt. But now, standing in this broken workshop, she saw something she thought was gone forever. The possibility of dignity. One of the younger aliens in the crowd finally shouted, "Leave them!" "She has done nothing." Another voice followed, then another. Soon parts of the crowd were no longer chanting for her blood, but for mercy. The guards glanced at each other, unsure. Their authority was slipping. The lead guard's eyes narrowed with rage, but he saw the danger. If they attacked the human now, They would face not just him but a crowd ready to question the council itself. He lowered his weapon slowly, his voice dripping with bitterness. "This isn't over, human. You've made enemies far stronger than you can imagine." Daniel did not move. "Then let them come," he said firmly. "I won't stop standing." The guards backed away reluctantly, shoving their way through the crowd. Their footsteps echoed as they disappeared into the night. Silence followed. The crowd stood frozen, their faces filled with mixed emotions: shame, doubt, and something new: respect. Slowly, one by one, they began to turn away, their torches dimming as they walked back into the streets. The workshop door hung broken on its hinges. The air was heavy with smoke and dust. But inside, for the first time that night, it was quiet again. Daniel lowered his wrench, his arms trembling from exhaustion. He dropped it onto the floor with a heavy clatter and turned toward Lyra. She stared at him, her lips trembling, her tears shining in the dim light. For a long moment she couldn't speak. Finally she whispered, Why did you do this for me?" Daniel wiped the sweat from his brow. His voice was soft but steady. "Because you deserved someone to stand for you. Because no one deserves to be thrown into the mud and forgotten." Her throat tightened. She covered her face with her hands, sobbing softly. "I thought I was worthless. I thought I was nothing." Daniel stepped closer and gently pulled her hands away from her face. His eyes met hers. "You are not nothing, Lyra. You never were. Don't let them decide your worth." Her tears fell harder, but this time they were not only from pain. For the first time in years she felt seen, not as dirt, not as cursed, but as someone valuable. Outside, the last of the crowd dispersed, leaving the street empty. The city would not forget what happened tonight. The council would not forgive. But something had changed. Inside the workshop, a broken woman had found dignity again, not through power, not through revenge, but through the courage of a human heart. Lyra sat quietly, her breath shaky, her body still trembling. Daniel pulled a chair beside her and sat down, his presence steady, his silence stronger than any words. The night was far from safe. Danger would return, enemies would rise, but for now, in the quiet of the workshop, one truth remained unshakable. Sometimes a single act of kindness can stand taller than armies. Sometimes one human heart can give back what the whole galaxy had stolen. And in that moment, as her tears finally slowed, Lyra realized the truth. She was no longer alone.